Before I do anything else, I was reminiscing about the conception of this magazine that Mr. Donadio edits now, which Jay will remember took place in Lou's restaurant in Hanover. In a fit of almost stupefying naivete, we launched this enterprise. And when I took myself away from the magazine in 1989, needless to say, as a father might feel on raising a child and giving her away in marriage, one is nervous. And I want you all to salute Stephen for keeping the magazine very vital. He and his staff have put their own impress on it, but it remains to me something that I can be proud to say that I was associated with all these years. I'm going to read 6 poems tonight. You really can't stop me, so I might as well go ahead. I'm going to read 2 from this latest collection of mine, 2 that are as yet unpublished in book form, and then 2 from another book from Four-Way. And I'm all the happier to be associated with Four-Way, to have heard that wonderful reading by Ellen in 2013. The first poem is something of a math anxiety poem, or just science in general. I don't know. There was a secret about all that, and nobody was telling me what it was. So, anyway, this is called Bent Tree, Straight Shadow. The skeletal Mr. Block flunked me in physics. He gathered some courage and told me I'd never tried. And what if I had? I'd still have been mystified. Something always goes wrong with me and numbers. The thing has stopped me dead in my tracks, for instance, on the north side slope of Checkerberry Knoll at 3 o'clock today in January, Vermont, 2008. The thing I saw would all add up for one whose mind's behavior was different from mine. But I stood still and wondered. While the scurfy trunk of a half-dead sugar maple got struck somehow by the unobstructed sun and showed a shadow straight as string on the snow. I couldn't make it make sense. Bent tree, straight shadow. Would some equation explain it? Maybe, but not my thinking, which flew off anyway but straight. To Block, as it happened, blackboard, chalk, cheap suit, oversized and wrinkled like animal skin. The haywire hair, an expression between pure rage and pain as our pack of brutish adolescents, all in a circle, dreaming up jibes so sharp we dreamed they drew blood, jeered the hopeless teacher. None of us wanted to grow up Mr. Block. Neither did Block, I bet. So if when you talk of the young you grow lyric, you've never known a child, or never been one. It takes a lifetime, it seems, to have a heart, to make certain things add up. I wondered whether the man still strode the earth. Cold snow chirped underfoot as I strode along in search of more legible signs. Dark blood and hair and frozen dung, so the deer gave the neck just there. It was easy to figure the pack of coyotes circling the kill, the parts all dragged downhill and up. When I arrived, there was nothing else remaining besides that blood, the shit balls, the scattered hair clumps, the backbone, the hooves, the very hide, all missing. This next poem is, when Ellen said this isn't a very cheerful book, I thought, you know, I'm sure we're both lots of fun in real life. This is called the 1950s. The boys went back and forth between scamming and snubbing the girl who showed up late afternoon to watch each practice and game. Her elbows propped on the boards as their bodies flew by. Cinder block and I-beam echoed with grunts and the claps of sticks on pucks. Before they showered, unlacing skates on the bench, they threw fingers to see who'd be the one to go find her. They bragged about what they'd make her do or had. Some of them must have known her actual name, so there's no excusing what the young punks called her. Among themselves, the girl was always Rink Rat. Where was the school where Rink Rat took her classes? Nobody cared, or wondered how her family, if she had a family that is, could set her free to hang around with boys at play and after. Behind the building, a path of mud and cinders snaked past propane tanks and garbage cans, up a squat little hill that was more or less out of sight. Not exactly a bower, but atmosphere wasn't the issue in the dead of winter, when it all had to be quick fun. Much later, driving past some stark, cold scene that sketchily resembles that meeting place, one of the boys, who may now be a father to daughters, shivers, thinking back on the blurry figure with bottle-thick glasses lopsided on her face, her savagely birthmarked face. The mark is what lingers more than anything. It started under an ear, as they saw when she wore her limp hair up or in braids. She tried out other styles, too. The boys didn't care. Her body was all that mattered. As one of them sneered, the chassis is not half bad, as though if she weren't a rodent, she could be a machine. What was the desperate longing, if that's what you'd call it, that made her so easy a mark? Why on earth would she come and come and come? Oh, they had some fun with that word, their double meanings, as lame as each of them was surely mistaken. The Rink Rat machine would thrash and sigh and moan, a pretense that the graceless boys didn't bother with. Her birth splotch took the nastiest possible path, from that ear to the edge of her scalp and straight back down, turning her oversized nose, all acne and blackhead, to a blob of berry and paste and melting chocolate, her chin the same. So the boys were playing two games, one with nets and goalies, the other with Rink Rat. After their sweat cooled down, they talked about hockey. They praised their own teamwork, deception, brotherhood, speed. In short, they swapped the mindless swaggerers' claims that men have always shared. I'm saying they will understand. As I try to skate over shame, it seems to have taken me all these years to name. This is a poem called Fathomless. I remember that store and the nasty redneck whose stink seemed a challenge to everyone in it. The scene is decades old, but I'm still confused that no one took up the challenge, including me, though I liked an occasional fight back then. The prospect of pain meant less to me once, I guess. An aneurysm had just killed my brother, so the pain I'm talking about was my body's. I breathed up another pain that day. I checked the man's beat pickup. Why would he want them, those skunks knee-deep in its bed? I left the lot still more confused, my sweet retriever shivering on the seat beside me. The god-awful smell still clung to the dog's wet coat and my own. There'd be no more hikes for us that morning. Rain had arrived, bone-chilling. If you killed a skunk, why would you keep the thing? To kill some time, I stopped at the Jackpot View. We've always called it that. 5 mountaintops bled into mist to my east in New Hampshire. The sudden squall spilled leaves on the woods floor's pall of nondescript hue. Now he was dead. Now my brother was dead. Now I can't define any God, but only this morning I caught a whiff of road-killed skunk and thought I could speak of him or her or it as surely as I could tell you the slightest thing concerning the man I'm remembering now, the one who shot or trapped or clubbed those miserable, reeking creatures. The smallest enigmas we ever encounter remain as hard to explain as all the epical ones. I failed for years to fathom the death of my brother, but it's just as hard to understand why a scene in an old Vermont store should linger like dead skunk odor, which, if you've lately been tainted, comes back to scent you whenever a rain blows in. Or like some pains you may have thought you'd long since gotten over, but which, at some odd prompting, come back to haunt you. This clearly calls for improvisation. I don't know how that got in there. I'll be 70 soon, which absolutely floors me. If you're a long way from there, believe me, it gets here quick. But in spite of my being of a certain age, it's only a little over a year ago that the last of my 5 children went off to college. And having had a blended family and having had children under my roof for 39 years, the shock to my system was significant. And I hated it, and I still hate it, and I intend to kidnap this child at some point. And she's resistant. She's the one that referred to my recent distinction as poet laureate, by the way. This is called To a Young Father. This riverman must have always been lovely. Take the one-lane iron bridge shortcut across the town's west end and look downstream to where the water backs up by the falls. Boys once fished here with butterball bait because the creamery churned by hydro, and the trout were so rich, says my ancient neighbor, they tasted like heaven, but better. Try to stop on the bridge if no one's coming to see the back of the furniture mill in upside-down detail on the river, assuming the day is clear and still. I lived here and driven this road forever. Strange, therefore, that I've never taken the same advice I'm offering you. I've lived here, but I've too often been racing to get to work or else back home, to my wife and our younger school-age children, the 5th and last of whom will be headed away to college starting this autumn. I hope I paid enough attention to her and the others, in spite of the lawn, the plowing, the bills, the urgent concerns of career and upkeep. Soon she'll be gone. Try to stop on the bridge in fall. That is, when hardwood trees by the river drop carmine and amber onto the surface. Or in spring, when the foliage has gotten no bigger than any newborn infant's ear, such that the light from sky to stream makes the world, as I've said, or at least this corner, complete, in fact double. I'd never have dreamed a household entirely empty of children. It'll be the first time in some decades, which may mean depression, and if so, indifference to the river's reflections, to leaves and shades, but more likely, like you, if you shrug off my counsel, or even if you take it, it'll be through tears that I witness each of these things so lovely. They must have been lovely all these years. When I was a shaver, I had a dream of becoming the white Dexter Gordon on saxophone, and there were all kinds of reasons that wasn't ever going to happen. Lack of talent would be, somewhere on the list, I'm sure. This is called You Listen to Dexter Gordon. Miss X was gentle. She helped you climb the staff, those lines on which hung E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy does fine, she told you, smiling, to remind you which note went where, and perhaps to soothe you. But there'd be more climbing, and you knew you'd never make it, you fat little stupid oaf. You would drop piano. 2 clefs were too much, you never learned the bass, and life seemed already overcomplicated. Kind Miss X, goodbye. You took up with Mr. Y. By now it wasn't the notes that exasperated so much as that you couldn't manage to make your fingers function so the sax could soar into song. The squawks, the broken reeds, your breaking soul when Y named you shit for brains, or when he claimed you might as well be talking to a wall. Maybe a mother could love you, but I can't stand you. You'll admit you didn't even ever practice much, though you weren't lazy, no matter the things he yelled. Laziness figured in less than plain awareness. You'd never be Dexter Gordon, or much at all. Home meant discord and drink, so Y was wrong about mother love, because you could have practiced your scales and whatever else might be expected until, cliche leaps in, you went blue in the face. You'd be what she said you were. A lifetime later, Dexter whispers his way through Don't Explain. You want to explain nonetheless. You bring to mind the easy trick of the easy piano teacher for the gaps between the lines, F-A-C-E. She said, your face is all you have to remember. Then touched your cheek, which no practice had blued. You were already blue enough when you listened to Y, or ached for some girl from what seemed impossible distance, or heard the household's silences, mutters and roars. Dexter moves on to guess I'll hang my tears out to dry, and you breathe, every good boy does fine. You should have paid attention to sweet Miss X, because weren't you good? You wanted to be at least, though even you couldn't stand the sight in the mirror before you climbed into bed of your own face. I read last night in Boston, and I ended up with a poem to indicate that I am lots of fun in real life. An upbeat poem, but it involved it wasn't a celebration of a hernia, but a celebration of the bearer of a hernia. But a man named Floyd Marsh, may he rest in peace, a florid, jocund man that my son referred to as Pink Floyd. But that's neither here nor there, is it? Because I'm not going to read it, so what the hell. This one is called Mahayana in Vermont. My objectives this morning were vague. Jeez, that could be on my headstone, I think. I came across I'm not a particularly great Eliot fan, but I came across a line of his in an essay which I've always treasured, which is that he talked about how he had cultivated the necessary laziness of the poet, and I glommed onto that, you can imagine. Anyway, Mahayana in Vermont. My objectives this morning were vague. As always, I'd hike these hills a way to keep going against the odds age deals. A way to keep body and soul together, not so much thinking as letting things steal into mind. But I started counting from the very first step I took. I wore rank old boots, ill-laced, and patchwork pants. Around my neck hung the frayed lanyard of a whistle I used to summon our trio of dogs, who capered and yelped their pleasure at one of our walks. And more miraculous still, at having me for a master. It's true in a sense that I always count as I wander, though it's usually the beats of a tune, Thelonious Monk's Blue Monk, a favorite, that mark my time. These counts felt odder, better. We scattered a brood of grouse at step 91. The deer flies strafed us. At 500, a late trillium glowed by a ledge like a lotus. Right along, the rain kept pounding. I was mindful of all these things, but I never stopped counting. Life was good and more. It was worthy of better response. At 1,000, I thought, enough, and counted on. Nothing was coming to mind. Nothing is coming again from a hike half a day ago with 3 dogs through rain, but a mystic sense of well-being in quietly chanted numbers. Whatever this trance, I treasured it as a wonder, not to be wrenched into meaning, as in every second counts, or you should count your blessings. Though of those there seems no doubt. Well, thank you for listening to me.